Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On this week's episode of Conversations with Big Rich, I will be speaking with Phil Rawlings. Phil is the director of the Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo, the Boise Off-Road and Outdoor Expo, a producer of At Your Leisure TV, a mechanical engineer at Artec Industries, and is on the board of directors for the Blue Ribbon Coalition. All right, Phil, it's great to have you on the air. You've been beating around the off-road industry here for a while and got your hands into a lot of things like a lot of us do. So it's good to have you on board.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It was fun to get the call and say, hey, come on. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts and known who you are and followed you for, quite some time. So for me, this is an honor and a treat.
Well, the nice thing about this industry is that everybody that is that's in this industry is just a regular person. You know, we've just chosen a different path than most. So it's good to have you on. So let's start off with, where were you born and raised?
All different answers. I was born in Salt Lake, and a couple years after, we moved to Preston, Idaho, and then we moved to Burley, Idaho, and then high school was Logan, Utah, and then college. You said not to jump too far ahead.
No,
but
that's
anyways,
right. You can give that time. I'll bring you back.
Okay. I got kicked out of the engineering program at Utah State, and I went down to the University of Utah in Salt Lake, and I've sort of been around the Salt Lake area since then.
So you were really young when you were in Preston then?
Yeah, from 4 till about 7 to 8. But that's where my dad's family is from.
Okay. For those of you that are listening that don't know where Preston is, that is, I believe, where they shot Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah. In fact, Uncle Rico's van, that was my cousin and his buddy's van in high school.
Nice.
Yes.
That's cool. So then your real young years in Preston, and then you moved to Burley. And how long were you in Burley?
So I was about 12. Yeah, 12.
Okay.
And then we moved to Logan for my dad to go back to school and finish up schooling. So
was your dad chasing jobs then? Is that why the moves?
Yeah, my dad, he didn't finish his college degree when we lived. I guess they lived in Logan before I was born, and he didn't finish his degree and moved to Salt Lake. And so this was sort of him going back to finish his degree. And he was driving propane truck and managing a V1 propane station in Burley. And he started that in Preston and was transferred up to Burley.
Okay.
And just, it was too rough. He messed up his back, and those trucks didn't have good suspension back then.
Right.
So.
And then, so you did your high school years in Logan.
Yep, high school years in Logan, start of college there, and then was forced out of the engineering program. So
We'll get into that. I made that a note already. So,
all right.
So those high school years, and maybe going into high school, were you a good student, or were you one of those that looked out the window wanting to get the hell out?
Both.
Both. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I had a semi-photographic memory. I didn't have to really study. I didn't have to try too hard at stuff. It just came easy, and I didn't want to be in school, so it was boring, and I was sort of a nerd. But anyway, I had a lot more fun not in school. I used to go and sneak out at night and go terrorize the town and sleep during school. So I guess it all worked out.
A nerd, but you snuck out. That's normally not. Those aren't two things that you put together normally.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of that way. A lot of people that meet me, they just assume that I'm very mellow and chill dude, which I like to think I am, but I definitely have that adrenaline addiction side. That's yeah.
So if you have that adrenaline addiction, what is it that you used to do to get that fired up, that you can tell, that won't land you in jail or in trouble somewhere?
There's definitely some things I still can't talk about.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because people talk about their childhoods and they're like, oh yeah, I wish I could go back and do it differently and this and that. And I'm like, oh no, I got away with it once. I don't think I'll get away with it again. I'm good. I lived my childhood to the fullest.
I still think that I was smart enough not to get caught. When I did things that probably I shouldn't have, that I thought them out. It wasn't maybe necessarily just knee-jerk reaction. It was like
calculated risk.
Yeah, it was calculated risk, exactly. I mean, I can even say that I've run from the cops on numerous occasions. 4 times while I was a teenager, a couple of times as a 20-year, in my 20s, and then once
on bikes, motorcycles, foot. How did you?
In cars. Once on foot, but everybody else that was running from the party kept running, and I dove into a covered boat that was in somebody's side yard, and had just enough time to get into the boat, and the cops all ran past, so that and then I just waited there for like an hour until I figured the cops weren't hanging around the neighborhood anymore, and then I just walked home.
Nice.
And then running in the car, and then when with a motorcycle, that was always easy because the cop cars back then were not going to catch a bike unless you laid it down. And then Shelley and I ran. Actually, we believe we ran from the cops out of Scorpion Bay in Baja after one of the thousands coming back home. So, yeah, we just hit the race course because we knew that they weren't going to follow us on the race course. So.
Nice.
Some guy was trying to hold us up for $20 each for camping on a beach that you shouldn't have to, pay for. And
right.
He goes, well, I'll go to the cops. And we were like, go ahead, go to the cops. And then, so we followed him out.
You packed up?
Yeah, we were already packed up. And he came up to us at the end, and he turned toward the police station. We went 1 block down, turned up, and then he pulled into the police station. And then I looked at Shelley and I said, okay, what do you want to do? We're going to sit and, wait and hash this out, or do you want to run? And she thought for about 5 seconds, and she goes, run.
That's awesome.
So it was 17 kilometers down the highway to the race course, And I knew that once we hit the race course, they weren't following me in a Toyota Corolla or whatever they had. You know.
I knew I liked Shelly.
She's pretty demure until she gets fired up, but she's very righteous. So that if she feels she's in the right, she's going to let you know about it. And that's kind of what we were at that day. You know.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's fun.
So
yeah,
then, high school.
I've been chased by cops
Okay.
in about everything: foot, bicycle, motorcycle, car, truck. Yep.
And ever caught?
I was doing some drag racing, and I figured I had a 50-50 shot. The cop, we didn't see the cop behind us, and we took off from a light, and street racing, and I figured I had a 50-50 shot. He couldn't follow both of us, so I took a hard right-hand corner, pretty much sideways. Took it about 40 miles an hour, and cop followed me, and so I shut it down. As soon as the cop came around the corner, I shut it down, and that was a heck of a ticket.
My goal is always never to have had a mugshot.
Ooh, failed on that one.
Oh, see, I'm 66 and don't have a mugshot.
I've spent some time in jail.
Like I said, I think I just got luck. I either got lucky or I was just a little bit smarter. I don't know. Anyway.
I got busted for a fix-it ticket, but they'd been after me for a while, and so they held me for a while for the fix-it ticket.
So you were drag racing. What kind of car were you drag racing in?
At that time, I had a Mitsubishi Starion, little 2.5 liter turbocharged rear-wheel drive. It's like I don't know, like the granddaddy of the MR. I don't know what you want to call it.
Right.
Anyway, late 80s.
Okay.
But of course, copperhead gasket. It was bored over. I was pushing 22 psi of boost with a custom piggyback injector system, and it was pretty quick.
Awesome. So, what when you were in school, what was your, you said you have kind of a photographic memory. What was your best courses, or what courses did you like the best?
I liked science, and auto mechanics, and I wanted to be an author at one point in time. I liked reading and writing. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid, but that's I haven't done that as much lately. But until I was 17, I wanted to be an author and go be a hermit, live up in the mountains somewhere. And then one day in auto mechanics, I was trying to figure out what was like the next big thing in cars, what the next evolution was. And I had a thought while I was looking at a car on a hoist, and I was like, if I'm going to do that, I need to be an engineer. And that was the moment that I decided that I was going to be an engineer.
Okay. And we'll get more into that, but during those school years, were you driving at that point, or what was your first vehicle?
1974 Jeep J10 pickup.
Ooh, a J10.
That was my first four-wheeled vehicle. I had some motorcycles that my parents weren't very supportive of motorcycles, so I bought one from a buddy, and I had to rebuild the motor on it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was mechanically inclined, and so anyway, rebuilt the motor on this bike, and I kept it at my buddy's house. And so whenever we went riding with them, I had my motorcycle. So
without your parents knowing you had a motorcycle.
Yeah, they didn't know about that motorcycle till I was probably about 18, 19 years old.
Well, we have a lot in common that way. So then, but I kept a non-running motorcycle. Well, it ran, but it smoked really bad, and I always fiddled with it, but it gave me the reason to have riding gear without the parents actually realizing that I had a bike somewhere else. So
Nice.
So then you get out of high school, you decide you want to be an engineer, and were you working any jobs during high school?
So I decided I didn't want to be a stupid engineer because there are those. And so I got a scholarship for the VOTEC program in Logan. They have a VOTEC college, and that's where the high school auto mechanics programs were. And I got the scholarship for their full-time program, and so I went through that. In the middle of that, I took 2 years off. I did a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
And went to Pennsylvania, and one of the areas that I was in was Butler, Pennsylvania, which is pretty cool, birthplace of the Jeep. And there, the guy that I was with in that town is now my partner in the Off-Road Expo, Scott Phillips.
Okay.
And so, sort of interesting that we met in Butler, Pennsylvania. And anyway, it just sort of feels like it's one of those meant to be type things.
Right. So,
but
go ahead.
So I went back. I finished up the VOTEC program for auto mechanics. I got a job as a mechanic, and I didn't start college until about 5 years after high school. And anyway, so I was working as a mechanic while I was going to school.
All right.
It was interesting.
Regular auto or diesel mechanic or?
Auto mechanic.
Okay.
I liked, so I worked in high performance shops. They were shops where you did like all the regular tune-ups and belts and CV joints and clutches and all that stuff. But then they also had the high performance side of them. And so that was fun. It was an interesting change in the industry at that time too. It was changing from carburetors to fuel injection. And so I came in as the young kid that knew fuel injection, but I had to learn carburetors because there wasn't enough fuel injection stuff to work on. And so by the end of my mechanicing career, it was strange that I was the only person in the shop that understood carburetors.
Right.
And so, it was an interesting time, but I loved it. I loved turning wrenches. And in fact, I started my own shop when I was 24, and, no business experience, no, other than people wanted me to fix their cars. And so I started doing that, and it snowballed and turned into a shop. And then it distracted me from school, and I started doing the shop full time and not going to school. And then I brought in a partner, and that was a bad decision, bad move, and the whole thing went up in a ball of flames, and wound up destitute afterwards. I was actually homeless for a little while. It was a crazy ride.
Homeless.
Then,
so what did you do while you were homeless? I mean, were you camped out somewhere, or did you land on somebody's couch, or?
Well, I had an old broken down Jeep truck that was in a storage unit that it was a 64 Jeep pickup. I loved that truck. And it was in a storage unit, and I got kicked out of my apartment. And so I went and I lived in the storage unit, but I wasn't paying rent on the storage unit. And so I knew that they were going to lock me out soon. And I looked at the other ones that they locked out, and they'd put I went and looked at the brand of locks that they used, and they spray painted it with traffic marker orange. So I went and bought the same lock that they used and spray painted it with traffic marker orange, and I locked my own storage unit with my padlock plus plus one that looked like their padlock. And so I lived in my storage unit for a couple months until I got back on my feet.
So you didn't have like, the Storage Wars type episode where they cut the lock off and flip the door open and you're standing there in your skivvies in the back of your truck.
No, I never had that. Fortunately, I had sort of bent the tab on the inside of the storage unit so I could leave the locks on the outside and shut the door, and it still seemed like it was latched, but I could, wiggle it and get it open. So
nice, very good.
But you got to work the system, man.
Yep, sometimes you do. There's absolutely
yeah.
no doubt about that. So,
and that was, that was a dark time, but
right.
Good motivating learning experience.
And from that point, how were you able to get out of that funk?
Well, it got darker. I got into an apartment, but then I crashed my bullet bike. And, I was telling you about that photographic memory. Well,
right.
my brain, fortunately inside of a helmet, bounced off of a telephone pole about 60 miles an hour. And I have a photographic memory that doesn't have any film now. So
okay.
I lost a couple months of my life I don't remember. Had some real bad short-term memory loss issues for a couple years, and of course, like right after that, I decided to go back to college and get back into my degree. And I've got a memory that's not working, and I've never had to study in my life, and so I had to learn new skills, and I have a textbook from a class and homework from a class that I don't remember.
Wow.
But I went to it. I got the grades. I mean, I got a C in the class. But I don't remember taking the class. And that was a hard time because I actually failed a couple classes, and that is what got me kicked out of the engineering program.
Okay.
So.
And how was it just time that brought that memory back, or what did you do?
I have a decent memory now. It's just not what it used to be.
Okay.
But I had to learn how to work and study and be like a normal person and actually have to learn things. So that was so. Anyway, after I got kicked out of there, I moved down to Salt Lake and went to the University of Utah and finished out my degree there. And the job I got, interestingly enough, was working at Advanced Four-Wheel Drive with Randy Robinson. I don't know if you know who he is, sort of an old school guy in the four-wheel drive world.
Okay.
He started doing four-wheel drive conversions for mini trucks for mines and stuff like that.
All right.
Back in the 70s. The flat top knuckle steering arm was something that Randy came up with back in the 70s.
Okay. Okay, so you were working at the four-wheel drive shop?
Yeah, I was working at the four-wheel drive shop and finishing up my last couple of years of engineering. And, I had a 73 Jeep truck at that time and lifted it and put stuff under it. And this sort of got me back into the four-wheel drive and off-road world.
And then from there, you stayed as a mechanic there for how long?
A couple of years until I got a job working for. I did a engineering internship in Detroit, and then I got a job. This is while I was still in school, still working while I was putting myself through school, trying to pay off the debt from my shop. And I went down, I worked at a place called Kirkham Motorsports in Orem, and they do the Shelby AC Cobra replicas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so that was fun. And then I got a job my last 2 years. You know, I have a 4-year degree, but it took me a lot longer to get it.
Right.
So I was on the 8-year program. And anyway, worked for Kirkham for a little bit, and then my last 2 years of school, I actually worked as an engineer for an aluminum foundry, and so that was pretty cool, and that's where I get my casting background from, and so that was, and it's actually served me well. I've used the casting knowledge to make a couple off-road products and design them for some people that I knew that had that were doing off-road axles, and that sort of just led me on the path where I'm at now.
Okay. You mentioned Detroit. You interned in Detroit?
Yeah, I did an intern at a place called Mustang Racing Technologies.
Okay.
And worked there for summer in Detroit, and that was interesting and eye-opening because I thought that I wanted to go work for one of the big three and do, you know, engineering for them. But then I went to Detroit, and we were working with the Skunk Works in Ford on the development of the GT Mustang. We were the Tremec dealer for the area, and so they wanted to try out a Tremec for the new GT Mustang. This was 05. And so they wanted to introduce it with a 6-speed manual transmission for 06. But man, the stuff that even Skunk Works, like the most liberal, like go crazy division of Ford, the things that they had to deal with, and the penny pinchers and the bean counters, they ran everything. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. So that actually turned me off of pursuing a career at one of the big three automakers.
Right, having your hands tied instead of being able to just, you know, create.
Yeah. Yep.
That's, bean counters have really screwed things up, in my opinion.
Yeah. So in my engineering career, I've worked for small companies ever since then, and I like it. There's definitely some challenges, but it's been a lot of fun.
Okay, so you're working then in. We'll get back to working on the AC Cobra replicas. How long were you doing that?
I think about a year and a half, and then just the drive and how much I was living in Salt Lake, and I was driving down to the Orem area every day, and my bank account was suffering. And so I just did some math on how much it was costing me to drive to work every day, and then how much I made while I was there. And it wasn't very good. So I started looking for a job in Salt Lake, and that's when I found the job at the aluminum foundry.
Okay. So. And the aluminum foundry, what kind of things did you guys cast? Was it automotive parts, or was it just, what was it?
No, there were no automotive parts, but there were gearboxes. They had their own line of gymnasium safety and lift equipment. So the folding backstops that move out of the way and fold up, the winches that run those, they made those, and the safety straps that caught them, they made those. And while I was there, I helped design a new generation of those, and that was my second patent. And so anyway, that was pretty fun. And so we did huge wheels for the ski industry, like for their ski towers. So we did high pressure molds, low pressure molds, and gravity pour molds, and then some machining as well.
All right. And
So
how long did that last?
Let's see, I was there probably 5 years. I was there when I got married in 2011. So, yeah, that's about 5 years.
Okay. Up to that point, that was probably the longest job you'd had?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that I've done until I became an off-road event promoter is I never had a job or a career, even my own businesses, that lasted more than 5 years. I got bored or tired of doing things and wanted something different.
I'd say 4 years is probably pretty typical for me.
Okay.
4 to 5. Sometimes it's because of me, and sometimes it's not.
Okay.
Like businesses have gone under, or they've changed strategies, stuff like that.
Right.
You find as an engineer that you are the first one out the door when things go bad.
Okay.
Because if things aren't going bad, they're not developing new products. They're not doing new and different things. So, and you're expensive.
Right.
So, yeah, you tend to be the first one out the door when things are not going great.
Okay. So you said you got married in 2011?
Yeah, I was 36 years old. That's pretty young here for Utah. Oh wait, no. Yeah, so I was 36 when I got married, and I married a girl that I met at church, and she's awesome. So I had to calm down a little bit. I was, I don't know. Some people say calm down, and they're out drinking and partying and drugs and stuff. That was never what I did. I liked adrenaline. I was mountain biking and chucking off of cliffs and rock climbing and fast cars and trucks and motorcycles and adrenaline. I liked adrenaline.
Right.
So, but I calmed down a little bit and decided maybe I should start trying to be more serious about finding somebody, and I found an awesome wife. And I was listening to your podcast with Mark Jensen, and you guys were talking about your wives and them supporting you in your businesses and stuff. And that's my wife. She's a smarty pants. She has her master's degree in statistical analysis from BYU, and she worked for 10 years in Vegas for HSBC, which is the second biggest bank in the world. And then she moved to Salt Lake because she wanted to meet guys that are more her age and interests and stuff like that. So she moved to Salt Lake, and then we met and
she got
stuck
married. With you.
And then she got stuck with me.
Right.
Yeah. I married a sugar mama. She made twice as much as I did when I married her.
Nice. When I met Shelly, I was getting ready to shut down We Rock and get out of the off-road industry. Didn't know what I was going to do. And she was the chief financial officer for First American Title. So she made a lot more money than I did. And I don't know how, but I captured her heart. So, and we're still going strong. So that's, it's good.
Yeah, it definitely, I don't know what it is. Well, you've got another person there with you and depending on you, and it changes everything.
Right. Absolutely does. So then you're at the foundry for roughly 5 years. What was the next step?
then I went and worked for a company that was doing hybrid electric trucks and doing high voltage distribution systems for them, helping out a little bit with the drive controllers. My background, when I was a mechanic, I specialized in electrical and computer troubleshooting diagnostics. And, of course, I was playing around with high performance stuff. And so a little bit of tuning. And so the electronics background did me really well when I went and was working for this company, and I helped them develop some architecture. I actually helped develop some connectors. I wrote some specs for a connector that they use very commonly now in high voltage hybrid drive situations, or even I thought I saw some on a Tesla, but I'm not sure that those were the ones. But
interesting.
Anyway,
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And that lasted for about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And I wasn't super happy there. I didn't really feel like the company was, I felt like they were living a little bit off the hype and weren't really truly being sincere about the efforts for being an actual profit-driven company.
Okay.
And that bothered me. And so when they said that they were moving all the engineers to California and they didn't offer any pay rate increases or anything like that, I said, yeah, I don't think I'll be moving with you. And so they let me go. And then I was out of work for a little bit, and then I found a job, and my favorite job ever. I worked for a company called Intermountain Rigging and Heavy Haul, and I got to design and play with the coolest stuff. We did rigging jobs. We were moving, 20, 30,000 pounds was a pretty light load. My first project we did was moving some 800,000 pound generators into a power plant down in Linden, Utah. And so I got to design these 42-foot tall columns that were going to support 800,000 pounds of a generator plus all the equipment, and then roll it 40 feet across it into the building. And that was pretty crazy for a first project.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, we don't know much about you, but your paper looks good. Let's have you design this full-on system here, and don't worry, they're only $8 million turbine generators that we can't replace.
So if you drop one, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much, you just you try and cease existing at that point in time.
So after you do the design and they build off your design and they move the first one, as they're moving that first one, what's going through your mind? Were you there?
Oh yeah, I was on site. So we've got these massive I-beams that are 42 feet in the air, that these trolleys, they're basically like massive jack stands with wheels on them, powered by hydraulics. And so they're standing in the middle of these beams and there's probably a 40-foot span in between these towers, these columns that I designed. And anyway, so they're right in the middle of these beams, and I knew exactly how much deflection those beams were supposed to have when they took the full weight and everything. And I was up in a basket and about level with the beams, and they started taking the load, and those beams started moving fast, and my heart just sank. I was like, oh no. I was about ready to yell at him to stop. And then it slowed down, and I calculated it was like 2¼ inches, something like that, of deflection. But that first inch went so fast. And yeah, my heart just sank, and then it slowed down, and then it just they started, like, the thing hadn't even come off the ground yet. They were still, getting the slack out of all the cables and all the tension on everything, and these beams were already sagging. And so it finally hit that 2 1/4, and the load came off the ground, and everything was perfect, and it was dead nuts on what I calculated.
Nice.
And that was a thrill. So that was, I had a lot more confidence in, my schooling and engineering and the math and stuff of everything at that point in time. But what a ride.
That was probably the largest project you did then?
Nope.
Oh, up to that point though.
Up to that point, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're engineering, smaller things, there's less not less opportunity to go wrong, but there's less impact if something goes wrong.
Yeah. It's interesting because it was a massive system, but it was all fairly simple. I mean, you've got these round pipes that we've built into columns, and then you've got I-beams across it, and really that's, of course you got your ties in between stuff to keep it from racking and shifting and stuff and all that, but your major components are actually pretty dead simple.
Right.
They're just high risk, high load.
And hoping that those I-beams were produced properly.
Yes. Yep. You get your certifications on the mills and all that stuff, but yeah, you never know.
Right.
So, yeah, that was definitely a heart-stopping moment. But then we did a 1.2 million pound load out of Arizona, and this was a rectifier for a windmill down in excuse me. This was for a windmill in Monticello, and we did this one over the road in this huge trailer. We called it the mega trailer. And so you've got 1.2 million pounds sitting in the middle of these 100-foot long beams. And then we had 2 semis when the worst case, we were trying to climb a hill just over the Virgin River. We had 2 big semi trucks in front, and we had 2, 4, 5. I think we had 6 or 7 semi trucks behind, and they were all pushing these big, huge beams up the hill.
Wow.
So that was cool.
Interesting. So after that job, you did you get back into automotive?
No. 2014, 2015. Let's see. No, when was that? I got laid off from there. The economy took a dive in 08, 09.
Right.
But the heavy haul, it wasn't affected as much until like 12 and 13.
Okay.
Because people weren't, the power companies weren't replacing their substations. They would have a failure and they just take the spare off the pad, but they wouldn't replace it. And so heavy haul took a big hit in like 2014, 2015. And I got laid off shortly after that. And then through just connections, I got a job selling diesel engines.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I know, right? But it was a technical job. I had 5 states as my area. They were based in California. I was based up here in Utah. And so I got to do some engineering stuff, interfacing with customers and sort of design for the integration of the engines. But there's a lot of technology in the industrial engines nowadays with all the emission compliance and all that stuff. And so I worked there for 4 years. And So I sold John Deere, Doosan, Yanmar, some Chevy industrial engines, some Ford industrial engines. So that was definitely different.
Right. Sounds like it.
Yeah. And then in 2021, I think, the guys from Artec called me and said, hey, we need an engineer to help us on our trailers that we're developing, that we're doing, expedition trailers. And so since 2021, I've been over there doing engineering for them on their off-road trailers.
And what's the name of the trailers that they're building?
The model is a Voyager, but the name of the company is Expedition Trailers.
Okay.
Without an E on the front of the Expedition.
Okay. I've been trying to get Artie on the podcast and have not hooked up with him, so he's on my hit list. So when you see him, tell him that Rich is really interested in getting him on the podcast as well.
I'll tell him. He's a hard one to nail down.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So then you're working at you're still working at Expedition Trailers with the Artec guys. It's a subsidiary of Artec, I guess.
Sister company.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did the whole off-road expos come about?
Oh, we totally missed up. Yeah. So when I was working at Intermountain Rigging Heavy Haul, I'd done some off-road design work for some other companies. Like there was a company, they have sort of a bad name, but the product was really cool. And that's what I designed, and that was the portal axles for Portal Tech back in like 09 or 2010, 09, 2010-ish. And so that was my first introduction to King of the Hammers. Was the second year of King of the Hammers. Randy Slauson was running a car that had the Portal Tech axles on it. And so I went down there and did some race support for them, for King of the Hammers, for those axles. And then a couple years later, I designed the Super 14. It's a dropout 14 bolt. It's super strong, awesome axle. And then supporting that, I got back involved with King of the Hammers again a little bit, doing some race support. Dave Cole's digital camo car had Super 14 in the rear of that. And then we went and did some support on Vegas to Reno. And so that was a fun race. I love doing that. And then that was where I got introduced to Rick Mooningham with Trick Toys. And
Easy
he was Easy Rick. He's a riot, but man, he tells you how he thinks it is. And there is no sugarcoating on that. First time I met him. Yep. First time I met him, he read me the riot act, up one side and down the other. And so anyway, but I actually developed a pretty good relationship with him, and I like Easy Rick. He's still one of my favorite people.
So then from Portal Tech and working there, you got an idea to do an off-road expo just like that?
Well, it was, going places and supporting, like they drug me down to Pomona to the Off-Road Expo to, be the tech person for the axles and stuff. And so I would take time off of work and go down there. And the reaction was, oh, you're from Utah. I didn't know they had off-road companies in Utah. And so I'm like, what do you mean? We're like the mecca for off-roading. And that bothered me. And it ate at me for a number of years. And so I was wanted an off-road expo in Salt Lake. We have Easter Jeep Safari, which is awesome. But to be honest, there's not a ton of Utah people that, or at least my friends, we don't go down to that because it's so busy and so crazy. We go like the weekend before or the weekend after, or, you know, we hit it for just a second or two. And so it bothered me. And I'm like, okay, well, what would it take to put one on? And so I got researching it. And of course, you know, I'm an engineer, so I got my spreadsheet out and I guesstimated a bunch of costs of different things and started making some phone calls. And during one of the phone calls to the event center in Sandy, I accidentally booked a date for the first show.
You accidentally booked?
That's how I tell my wife.
Okay.
And so this was probably, well, I have a different version of the story than my wife and my business partner do, but I say it was early January in 2016, and they're all like, no, we only had 3 or 4 months to put this together. But in my mind, we had about 5 months to put it together. And so I got that. I booked some billboards. My sister is a graphic artist, and she's very talented. And I had her put some stuff together for me. I bought the website. I then started, I'm like, man, I really need somebody to help me with this. I can't do it all. And so I called Scott. I'm like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Do you want to help me? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, we can take a year. We can make all these plans. We can get all these businesses and stuff. I'm like, well, the date is May 21st and it's already booked. He's like, oh, you mean we're doing this now? And so, you know, it's sort of typical Phil fashion. I try and do my homework and, you know, look at things and try and analyze it. But there's that point where either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And if you're going to do it, you know, do it.
Commit. Yep.
Yeah. And so, anyways, yeah, our first year we had 50 vendors and 2,500 attendees. It was a one-day show. It was Saturday. You know, I had 2 billboard locations, one down by Moab because I was hoping to catch people coming back from Easter Jeep Safari. And I learned that you should double check your billboards and make sure that the lights work on them so people can see them at night. That was a little problematic for me, but yeah, my headline sponsor was Artec that first year. They just moved up to Utah. And so I told them, you know, hey, I'm putting a big billboard and your name's going to be on it coming out of when you come back from Moab. And they looked for it and didn't see it. And I got a call from one of the guys. I don't remember who it was over there. They're like, man, we looked for the billboard, but we couldn't see it. And then realized a friend of mine went down and checked it. He's like, yeah, dude, it has light pods on it, but they aren't on at night and you can't see it at all. So, you know, of course, in my world at the time, that was a massive thing, but in retrospect, it was just a little bump in the road. And so we, between Scott and I, we knew a bunch of businesses. Scott had helped with URock and with ARCA before that. And so he knew a bunch of businesses. He helped write some of the technical documents for URock and for ARCA, I think. And so he's actually the one who got me into URock in what was it, 03, 02, 03, doing judging and stuff for him.
Okay.
And so that was a lot of fun, and I was blown away by it. That still drives and fuels a lot of my passion for off-roading and stuff, was being there and watching people like Ivan Stewart and the Lovels and Craig Stump was always one that was having fun. He had that buggy with the tractor axles on it. I think he was sort of one of the first people to put a lot of weight down low.
Right.
Just sort of watching the innovations and the changes in that and everything was really cool. Anyway, I totally digressed. So we reached out to a bunch of businesses that we knew and people that we knew and a lot of people that we didn't know. And I had a formula for how many people we had to call and reach out to in order to get the amount of vendors that we needed. And the funny thing is, it almost worked out exactly like my formula that I had. And so we pulled it off the first year, and we thought, wow, that was pretty cool. On to the next. And one of the things that we did, we'd heard that there were some other companies looking at Utah for putting on an off-road expo, off-road show. And that sort of drove me even more, because in doing the research for the show, I decided that I needed to not just it needed to not just be a show. I needed to be able to do good for the off-road community. I needed to be able to give back, and I needed to be able to help build the off-road community in Utah. And, my focus was Utah, still is. But those other companies, I'm like, they aren't going to do what we can do with this. And so I came up with 3 pillars for the expo. First one is promote Utah off-road businesses. The second one is promote Utah. And the third one is unite the off-road community and teach them about land stewardship and about advocacy and keeping our trails open.
Okay.
And so with those 3 things in place, those have been our guiding pillars for the show. And they've done pretty well. And it's just growing like crazy. And the second year, the first year we were like half a hall. We were 26,000 square feet, something like that. And the second year, we were a full hall. We had the full 50,000 square feet, and we had like 5,000 attendees the second year. And the third year was almost 8,000 attendees. And then the fourth year was, man, I know I'm going to mess these numbers up, so maybe I shouldn't say stuff that's not accurate. But so in 2023, we had 32,000 attendees, and in 2024, we had 36,000 attendees.
Wow.
And that was our first, the 23 to 24 was the first year to year that we didn't grow over 40%.
Wow. But you're going to, at some point, you're going to hit
a plateau. Yeah.
Yeah. A plateau. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to find your reach and your infiltration through the market, and the people about you are going to know about you.
And how many vendors did you have in those 23, 24?
280.
280 vendors. Wow.
Yeah. And we were 200,000 square feet.
Nice.
And it's all indoor because, we're doing it now we've found our nice place that we like to live in the year. It's the end of February, 1st of March. And in Utah, you don't want to be outdoors at that point in time.
No. Getting that many people to show up in the winter is a good job.
Well, some people take it as a challenge, and
The
I mean,
off-road community does. I'm not sure about the camping, the RV people.
yeah, the vendors. Oh, it's funny. So last year we had a pretty good snowstorm that came in. Actually, the last 2 years we've had really good snowstorms that have come in, and I get a call from some of the California vendors, and they're like, "Hey, we're watching the weather, and are you going to be canceling this? I mean, is there going to be anybody that shows up?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, trust me, it's going to be good." And they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, yeah, yeah. In fact, if I could, I pray for bad weather. And so that way people don't go out and do other stuff. They're like, "Oh, hey, what should we do inside? Hey, let's go to the Off-Road Expo, to SLOREX." And so anyway, it's been pretty fun. But people from outside of Utah, they're a little gun shy about the bad weather, but we don't care. It's all good.
Right. So then,
in fact, I'd rather have rain than sun.
Yeah, keep people. Yeah, because the people want to go indoors and do something. Yep, makes sense. So then you're working at Artec. You're doing the expo still. You've started doing some up in Boise as well.
Yeah.
How many years have you done Boise?
That's our first year.
Okay.
In April was our first year, and it's sort of one of those things where I have an opportunity now to grow, or not, and so we went for it. Of course, I did my homework on Boise, and we found a good place, and we found good people, and we wanted it to feel local, like the Salt Lake one started. And the Salt Lake one, you come and you find a bunch of local shops and local vendors. The funny thing is we have a lot of local national vendors in Salt Lake.
Right.
I guess, that whole mecca of off-roading is a real true thing. And in Boise, they have their own vendors, and they have some fantastic companies up there like Factor 55, and on more of they have a little bit more overlanding and stuff, but we wanted it to be a Boise show. And so we were able to do that. We had 7,000 attendees our first year and about 80 vendors. And so that was, I loved it. I loved that show. That was a lot of fun.
Cool. Excellent. And so how did all this transition into you being on the board of directors for Blue Ribbon?
That grew out of the third pillar of the expo, and that's the off-road community, the land stewardship. Every year we donate a portion of our booths to the Forest Service, to the BLM. I know people like boo and hiss and stuff when I say that, but we want them there. We want them to interface with our people. We want them to see who we are. We want them to see how strong of a community we are. And we want them to realize that we're a good resource if they want to do things the correct way. And so we donate booths to Tread Lightly, to the Blue Ribbon Coalition, to the Utah Public Lands Association, to the Desert Rats, and a few other organizations that are awesome. We trade booths with Trail Hero, with your son's event. And it's just one of those things that we feel like that's one of the simple things that we can do to try and get the message out there, is to have those people there and interacting with the crowds. We do land stewardship panels on our stage. We have a 16-foot by 9-foot digital LED screen behind the stage that they do presentations and stuff on. And, we invite people to come to learn how to get involved, at what's going on, what different things mean, and really to try and get people activated in that world. And that led me to interacting with Blue Ribbon Coalition quite a bit. and Spencer Gilbert reached out to me and invited me to apply to be a board member. And then from there, it's just sort of, I love being involved with them. There's some great people like Ranch Pratt, Shannon Welch, Ben Burr, just, great people there's people from all over the United States. And so I love that. That's sort of how that came about, is just that we were already doing some of the stuff and we were already involved with it, and we were trying to drag them along into our event. So
good. Excellent. So then what else do you have your hands in?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. So in January, Scott and I, we got involved. There's a TV show that's based out of Salt Lake, but we actually air in 37 states across the nation, called At Your Leisure TV. And it's the longest running outdoor off-road centric TV show in America. And it's been 22 years. And Chad, the host, the owner, he's wanting to get a little less involved with it and retire a little bit. And so he approached us and said, "Hey, what do you guys think about becoming partners in this with me?" And so in true Phil fashion, we looked at things and then dove in. So in fact, I'm at Your Leisure offices right now. We're going to do some production meetings here in a minute, but that's been a lot of fun, learning about TV production and what's involved in it and all the different things going on behind the scene. And it's a whole different world. It really is.
And anything else you got your hands in? Or are you at max capacity right now?
Oh, yeah, I'm max capacity. Let me see. I put some notes down for myself earlier. I'm on the advisory council for the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Development for the outdoor recreation programs.
Nice.
And there's, I try and put in a good word for the motorized off-road world. And there's a lot of people that are a little bit more granola, hippie loving. And so I try to be the different voice on that. My wife and I now have 4 kids. I have 3 little girls. Then I have a little boy, and they range from 11 to 4. So, I'm busy trying to be a dad, and they love off-roading. In fact, we go to Winter 4x4 Jamboree every year, and it just happens to coincide with my daughter's birthday. So she thinks that's her birthday trip. And they look forward to that. And, we hit a few off-road events, and we go camping and just getting them outside and involved in things, and they love it. And we just bought an XJ that I'm going to be fixing up over the next couple of years for them to drive when they get their licenses, and they're super stoked about that. It's just a lot of fun.
I love the XJ platforms.
It's dirt simple, not super powerful, but they work. It's hard to argue against a garbage can that can climb what you just climbed.
We just did a motor swap in a 98. I should have it back here within the next month or so I can finish it.
What motor did you put in?
It's got about a 390 horse LQ4.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the
that's
cast iron block
fun.
LS. Yeah, 6 liter.
So you're going to strengthen your unibody on that?
That part has already been done. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's got JT 44 axles, 4-linked in the rear. It's got a radius arm front, which I like on my existing XJ, my beater rig, the one that we use for recoveries and setting up race courses and all that. It's now become just a trail rig.
Radius arms are dead simple.
Yes. And
they work.
Yep. May not be the greatest of flex, but you know what? They're they work. I wouldn't necessarily run a comp buggy with them, but for trail wheeling and picking your own line, they're just great. You can drive through everything.
And what size tires are you putting on that?
35 1350s to begin with, 17s, and then eventually I'll go to 37s on the V8 Jeep.
Nice. Yeah, your 37s are probably going to be about the limit of your axles there.
Well, everything is going to be chromoly and 35 spline.
That helps.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I don't drive with a heavy foot, except from stoplight to stoplight. But on the rocks, I'm very smooth in the rocks.
Yeah. My off-road rig is my family. I still have my '73 Jeep pickup, and that's lifted on 40s and Dana 300 and Chevy fuel injection system on it. Still got the AMC 360, but my family off-roading rig is a '88 Grand Wagoneer, and we call it saggy because when we got it, the back end was all sagged down, and it's just a fun rig.
Nice.
So if you see us around, it'll have it has a red potty bucket on the back, like almost always, because I have 3 girls. I mean,
right.
They have to go to the bathroom at the drop of a dime. So that is a constant fixture on the back. But my wife and I joke about that all the time. And she's like, yeah, we have these pictures of us being all cool and stuff. And then there's the bucket.
Kind of a bumper dumper?
No, it's just got a flip up lid, and inside the lid, it has sort of a seat lid.
Yep.
And then it's into a bag, and dump your kitty litter in there and strap it back on the top.
Yeah, we use one of those in our adventure trailer with the rooftop tent.
Works.
Yep. We bring up a little shelter so that we can,
Yeah. So we had a vendor at the last show, Instaprivy, and I was looking at their setup there, and it's slick, packs into a pack, and it's got your toilet seat and your bag, and you roll it up. And so we went hiking up to Timpanogos Cave, and I took that with me just sort of on a whim because I hadn't used it yet. I'm like, all right, that's like a pretty good hike with 4 little kids. I'm going to need this. And so sure enough, we found a wide spot on the trail and set that thing up. My girl, she was dancing like crazy. I don't think she would have made it about another 5 steps. And we whipped that thing out and set it up. And then, of course, once one girl goes, they all got to go. And then my boy, he's like, I got to go too. And so pretty much the whole family, except for my wife and I, they had their moment on the trail, and people come around the corner and they see a little green floating privacy thing, and they're like, is that? I'm like, yep, that's cool.
There you go. Perfect. So what's in the future for you?
Oh, well, at the moment, I got to sort of concentrate on what I got going on.
Right.
So AYL, the TV show, we need to modernize it a little bit. It's an awesome show. It's cool. Does a lot of good. We use it to help us with promoting some Blue Ribbon Coalition stuff and some other land use things. But we need to modernize it a little bit, make it a little bit more YouTube friendly. But that's hard because you can't lose your current viewers. You can't change it so much that they tune in and they're like, hey, where's my TV show?
Right.
And so we have a super loyal following and viewer base. And so we're trying to modernize that and trying to figure out how to exist in the new sphere of social media and internet content and everything like that. So we're trying to do better at selling advertising space on the show and things like that. So if you have a product that you need to advertise to an off-road viewership market, hit me up. Is that okay to do a plug like that on your show?
Absolutely.
Right.
Give an email address to so they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so you can just use the same one for everything, the shows or the expos or the TV show. It's Phil at SLOREX.com. That's PHIL at SLOREX.com. So it's just the abbreviation of the show name, Salt Lake Off-Road and Outdoor Expo.
Perfect.
And then on the expo sides, we are looking to grow. And so we're looking to grow the Boise show and the Salt Lake show, and we're looking at another market. And so that'll be cool and interesting and scary and all that good stuff.
Well, good for you. It sounds like you got a lot going on and you're going to keep busy and stay out of trouble.
That's used to be the hardest part, but now I don't have time. I did get a speeding ticket the other day for 19 over. I had that one coming. But other than that, for the most part, I'm just,
That actually amazes me in the Salt Lake area because nobody there drives less than 20 over.
I know. I wasn't really passing people that fast. I was late to a meeting, and so I was speeding a little bit. And I was in my car, and I'd been driving my truck with the toy hauler on behind it for the past week on vacation. So yada yada yada, excuse. I was flying.
Well, at least you didn't get a mugshot with that one.
No, not with that one. Yeah, apparently it's just the fix-it tickets that I got to watch out for.
Well, excellent. Phil, it's been great having you on here. I appreciate you spending the time and talking about your life and your history and all the things that you got going on. It's it's a handful. I love talking to people that have handfuls of stuff. I'm retired, semi-retired from.
Yeah, I was going to call you on that one.
And but I'm busier now than I think I ever have been because I'm not driving all the time. So it's
For Low is starting to take off. I mean,
Yep.
We've been advertising with you. I think we missed the last 2 years, but before that we've been pretty good. And I got to know Shelly a little bit through that. And you guys have been awesome, and you have your hands in a lot of things as well.
Yeah, now between the board of directors for the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame and for the Rubicon Trail Foundation, among the magazine and the podcast, and still helping with the event series, even though we're not boots on the ground at all the events, we're behind the scenes getting ready for events. So yeah, we got a few things going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, I hope to see you around.
Absolutely. In fact, at some point, I'd like to get to one of your expos and maybe set up a booth for the Hall of Fame. So,
that'd be fantastic.
So I'd like to
love
talk to
that.
you about that. Okay, cool. Excellent. Well,
Cool.
Phil, again, thank you very much, and say hello to the family for me. And good luck with everything you're doing and everything coming up in the future.
Oh, thank you. And maybe, will you be at Trail Hero?
No, I do. Shelly and I staff the Rebel, and so the Rebel Rally, and that starts right afterwards. And there's no way I can do one back up to the other. Too long.
You got to get all your setup done, and
and
there's a lot of work in events that people don't realize.
Yeah, especially an event that travels for 10 days, and sets up a bivouac everywhere for, basically 300 people. It can be amazing. We're just a small part of that, but we're constantly moving. And then the other thing is that having both of those events back to back, I'm away from my parents' house for too long, and that's what we're doing now is taking care of my mom. And so, we can't be gone for too long. So
Yeah.
we had to pick one or the other, and Rich is doing a great job on his own. He surely doesn't need me around for anything. So, but we're still involved with it with Jake Good and We Rock putting on the rock crawl portion. So,
yep.
Yeah.
I watch that every year. I'm there.
Cool. All right. Well, take care and have a great rest of your day.
All right. You too. See you, Rich.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.